Hello, and first of all, thanks for watching. If you're watching this video back, this is version 1.94. It is, as of date, it is October 1st of 2024. So if you're watching this back, Smartbuild may have changed some, but this is our current version as of today. So we're starting out with our home menu. And if you aren't sure where to find the Smartbuild login, we're currently under PostFrame Solver. So this is the web address. So if you do have a link, you can go ahead and log in. Obviously, if you have your username set up. But this takes you to our home menu. And depending on your setup, what you're looking at, in this version, I'm looking at our free trial. So if you're a free trial user, this is the screen you may be seeing. And we have our most recent jobs that I've created. I have some starting templates here that I've created beforehand. And the reason for a starting template is obviously if you're in a sales role and you don't want to have to go find a certain type of job, you can easily, when that customer walks in the door, you can easily pick the type of job that they're wanting quoted, open up that model, and you're good to go. So again, I have all kinds set up in here, different examples: stud frame, post frame, even if sheds, some barndominium. So again, this is our home menu. We'll be jumping into just a standard post frame garage to get started here. And what we want to do in this video is just going over the basics, what we'll call the basics of Smartbuild. So if you know these basics, you can get up and running and maybe even run your first quote. So we have a job loaded here, post frame structure, standard ag panel on the walls and roof with a small overhang. So starting over here on the top left, and we're going to try to move left to right across the screen. And I want to explain a little bit about each button that you see, just so if it doesn't make sense or the terms aren't what you recognize, you'll understand it, hopefully by the end of this video. So we'll start out, and we're in the 3D view. So this tab is highlighted. We can see our 3D view. We see the job name here at the top, and we see our configured price. So one of the first things that a salesperson likes to see is, well, I don't want to see this configured price until I'm ready to show that to the customer. So you can simply double click here on the job name and your price is hidden. If you want to, anytime you want to look at your price again, you can bring that back. And there's a few hidden tricks like that throughout the system, and we'll be talking about most of those in this video. So moving on, first thing is, well, I want to save my job so I don't forget it, and I want to get the customer's info first of all. So jumping over to the right side of your screen, we have a job tab. And this is required to be filled out first of all so that you can save the job. So if I put in the person's name or your customer's name or just the name of the job, and I don't have any of my other fields required, but you can require them depending on what your company wants to gather from your customers. But for this, we just put in a name. And at that point, as soon as we refresh, and we have a refresh slider here at the bottom, as soon as this job is refreshed or the first change that you make, you can now save this job. So if we go ahead and click save, it would load it into our database and you've saved your first job. So just like that, we've completed step one. Now, if you talk about this refresh bar here at the bottom, this is just preventing the software from calling our servers each time. And if you're just trying to get your bid done in a hurry and you don't really care about the price until you're done, you can go through the tabs and you're making changes. Maybe you're changing the building size, the color, all things like that. And you don't want to have to wait on it to change. So you can go and fill in multiple fields here, make multiple changes, and the software is still waiting. It has not refreshed. So then you can click refresh. It updates your model and your price. Now, if you would just rather have this update automatically each time, you can grab that bar, slide it back, and now as soon as I change a field and make a change to the model, it automatically refreshes. So depending on your role and how you use Smartbuild, you may or may not want to use that feature. So again, we're going to start here in the top left, and we're going to go across through these menus and just talk about each one very quickly, just so you get an idea of, okay, this is how Smartbuild works. So if you click on the 3D model and rotate with your mouse, that's how you move the menus around. So in the 3D view, that's the basics, how to move it around. If you right click on your mouse and drag, you can move your perspective. So if you want to tilt it up or move it around, move the model around, so sometimes that can help. So left click and right click allows you to move the model around. We do have different views that we've added. So you can have shell view, you can toggle the roof off, and those settings are all pretty self-explanatory. We can hide the landscape. We can even add trees to the background or show the sky. And all these are accessible. Here at the bottom, they can be set how you like to see them. The next time you open, it's going to remember how you have your landscape settings set. So when it comes to the 3D view, that's pretty much the overview of what all you can do in that. Now the 2D view is a floor plan layout. And when we talk about the 2D view, there are limits. Some of the features that we offer in 3D can be done in 2D also. So doors and windows, interior walls, and lofts can all be done in 3D or 2D or vice versa, with an exception to lofts. So you can't add interior walls, you can't add lofts in this mode. So we're going to be going through all these just again very quickly in this video. But I'm going to start out, we've talked about 3D and 2D view. We're going to start out with openings. So if I'm adding a simple walk-in door, man door, I'm just clicking my style door, and then it opens up this window. So I have to choose what type of walk-in door this is. Maybe we're not sure, so we're just going to grab a panel door. And then we have some options in here. Now, again, the question comes up is if you set up Smartbuild and you have a paid version of it, these would be your doors. So yes, you can customize these. So any door that you would see would be the doors that your company sells. So I'm just grabbing a 9-light door, and the width and the height come in for this door, and the seal height. So what's the seal height? Well, if you leave it at 0, it's just going to set it down on grade, which is pretty basic. Now, if this is a second story door, sure, you could move that up to 8 feet. Maybe it's leading out to a deck or something. So again, that is set at 0, and by default, it places it on grade. So other openings, at any time, you can just switch to another style. It reopens this window. Maybe we want to add an overhead door. Again, you can search by your model name or something in the name description, or you can search by size. So if you just type in 10 by 8 and apply, that searches. Now I can grab a door that looks like that. So again, these are not actual visuals. This is just a close representation of that style. So Carriage House normally has some hardware on it. So again, hovering over the model, as I drag my mouse around, you can hover. And again, if I want to place this on the back side, I can right click with my mouse and drag the building around. And if I click and hold off of the building, I can rotate it and then hover again and still place this door wherever I want. So we're not going to be too careful. We're just going to place this first door here on this front side. And again, since this is a large door, it did not worry about where the columns were. If we wanted to toggle the shell off, we could see, oh, well, we did knock out a column. There was a column right here. So Smartbuild just framed across that. And again, that's getting further into the settings, but you can place that door wherever you want. Other types of doors, windows, we have four types of openings currently in Smartbuild that we support. Sliding doors, very popular in post frame. We have 2 different classes of sliding doors, a premium kit type, or maybe you build your sliders from just a metal and wood frame. You put in the size of your door. Is it split? Is it left or right sliding? And then place it somewhere on the model. So again, it's very easy to add openings, and if you know how to add one type of opening, you pretty much understand all of them. So I've added a sliding door. It adds my trim, track, all that. Now the last one, probably the simplest, is the windows. So when you grab your windows, again, you have your classes of windows. Pick a double hung, find the size that you like. And again, if you did a setup, these would be your windows, so you wouldn't be looking at our generic windows. So I drop my window in here. It's refreshing again. And again, you notice it takes a few seconds to refresh. If you don't want it to refresh each time, again, you can slide this bar over, and then you can place multiple windows without waiting. Now we've added some windows doors where we have our models starting to come together. If I want to check that out, I can toggle the shell back on, see my metal, see what that looks like. Now again, before we get into the 2D, which is another way to add doors and windows, we're going to finish the rest of these buttons here out talking about porches. One of the most overlooked features about porches is this custom button. So if you want to add a full-length porch or a corner porch, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just click on this left or right, and as you're hovering, you can see it's going to say where this porch is going. Now, if you're not sure yet, you just want to say custom, go ahead and click custom, and it opens up a porch that you can place anywhere. So the start point, what does that mean? Now, when I'm adding a porch, if I set the start at 0, that means it's starting at corner from left to right on that wall or this wall. So any wall you hover over, that's left to right. So the length, we're doing an 8-foot porch. Maybe we want to do 12 feet. No problem. Set it to 12. The width is how deep the porch is coming out. Leave it at 8. That works too. And the ceiling height. Now this one we have a few more controls. So if I'm setting my porch, sure, I want to have an 8-foot ceiling height. That works. I can leave it. But maybe I want to match my main roof line, or the customer wants a reveal of 2 feet. So if I set that to be 2 feet down, then I know my porch is going to be set down 2 feet from that roof, and it's not going to worry about the ceiling height. Then anytime I adjust my main building, it's always going to adjust this porch up with it. Again, you could set your pitch could be different. You could have a different size overhang or no overhang. And these settings here are all pretty much will be the exact same as we go through our main building tab on the right. So this porch can be framed different from your main settings. That's fine. But if you've went through a setup, these defaults may already be correct. So as we go through here, if you're an advanced user, you may see more of these settings, but I'm just going to show you all of them just so you get a feel for, okay, I can set my truss framing. Maybe I don't want trusses. I could set it to rafters. We have several settings here that may apply depending on if you're using wood frame or steel frame. So those may be set differently. Now we're going to jump over the more in-depth settings and get to one of the most popular. Well, I'm adding a porch and I want to cut out the steel behind it. Yes, we can do that. So we can cut our wall sheeting out. You put in the dimension. Now maybe you don't know what that is. So if you go ahead and place the porch, it's going to cut it out. And then you can look at the model and see, oh, did I cut it out enough? And it's basically, if it's a large porch, maybe you want to get your bid as accurate as possible and you want to delete that metal. So if you leave this window open after you add your porch, so we have this window here, and since we've added our porch already, it doesn't close automatically. And the reason we don't do that is you can easily change the start point. And if you change the start point to a different dimension, and you know that our building width is 26. So if we set our start, in this case, let's say we put it at 14. As soon as you put it at 14, it ends right at the corner. And Smartbuild is going to know that since this porch is the exact same size, it's going to wrap that around and create a corner porch for you. So a little trick that allows you, if you leave this window open when you place your first porch, it's really easy to turn that into a wraparound. So just like that, we have our first corner porch. Now, other attached buildings, since we've went through that menu in depth, other attached buildings are very much the same. Well, what's the difference between a porch and a lean-to? Well, a porch is open, a lean-to is enclosed. And again, these terms may or may not be what you use. It's just what our software uses so everyone understands them and is on the same page. If you call support and you say you're doing a lean-to, they know what you're talking about. So when we add a lean-to, it would just enclose the walls. So the exact same settings. Now we do have, if we jump over to our toggle wall, our open wall button here, we can turn this porch into a lean-to basically by clicking the open wall button and hovering over any individual wall and toggling it down. So it's basically enclosing that wall or the front wall. And now it's becoming a lean-to. So even though you place it as a porch, you can still do partial open, partial enclosed structures. So lean-tos, porches, kind of the same thing. Awnings, just like a porch, the same thing, except it does not have load-bearing columns out at the end of the wall. So it's a freestanding structure that's attached. Some people call them eyebrows. There's all different types of names for them. Now the next one is attached buildings. When we look at attached buildings, it could be a porch or a lean-to or an awning, or it could be a gable style building. Now when it comes to an attached building, chances are maybe it's another wing that you're adding. And with Smartbuild, that's one flexibility that you have. There's never a limit to how many wings you can place on this structure. Maybe there's another smaller gable coming out here. So we set our start point, we set our length, and if it's a 12 by 12. And when we hover here, you can see how where it's going to place that structure. Again, set your overhangs. Maybe it's open, maybe it's enclosed. Either way, you can set that, and then you have all these other settings in here that we're not going to get into here. But maybe since this is open, we want to turn on a ceiling in this structure, and maybe it's a corrugated ceiling. So you could do that just for this structure, and it may not have ceiling in the rest of the building. So I go ahead and I place that, and it's going to frame out that structure. So moving on here, camp porches. This is a setting that we are working on and still upgrading. So when you try it out, it says it's a preview. And that's just basically because we haven't completely finished it yet. And a camp porch allows you to push a wall in. So let's say that you want to do a inset corner porch, or maybe the entire back wall of this structure is pushed in, set in 4 feet or even 2 feet. So it allows you to do a cantilever style overhang, and we just abbreviate that and we call it camp porch. So that's how that setting works. In this example, it's not really a good structure to try that, but we could inset this porch. I'll go ahead and inset that. Now, camp porches currently only allow you to go full height. It is something we'll be working on over the next few sprints. So if I start at 0 and I do a length of 4 feet, and maybe I'm just insetting at 2 feet. So it's going to push the corner of this structure in. Maybe it's a little shelter and you have a walk-in door there. So we'll push that in, and then obviously the user has to worry about how that's getting framed, because we may or may not be doing it correctly. So we push that in, and you can see how a camp porch works. So it allows you to push in. And if you want to delete a porch, simply click on that floor area that highlights, click delete porch. So just like that, we went through all of our attached buildings. We've talked about how to add them. And just like the way that we've deleted this camp porch, you can always delete any one of your porches or attached buildings. So to delete any attached building that you've already placed, you can edit the 3D or go into the porch buttons and hover. So as soon as you start to add a new porch, it allows you to hover over any existing building. So when I click porch, I click custom, and as I hover over this existing porch, I can select it and delete it or make changes to it. Another way to delete that porch is click the edit 3D. As soon as you go into edit 3D, it allows you to edit porches, it allows you to edit openings, So anything can be selected, edited, and deleted by double clicking on that highlighted area. So that takes us through porches, openings, and detached buildings, awnings, all that. Now, the one other feature we have not covered here yet is the divider wall. And if you want to do a divider wall, as soon as you go into the divider wall, it toggles the roof off so you can see your interior walls, if there are any. Now, in the case of divider wall, maybe a post frame structure and you're just dividing, cutting it into two structures. So if we're using the divider wall, as soon as you click, you set your start point, you set your length of your wall and your offset. And you just have to do the math and then tell us, okay, do you want to have liner or sheeting on one side or both sides of that wall? When you click, it goes ahead and it places that divider wall in that space. Now we've added a much easier tool, so I would recommend instead of using divider walls, you can go into the 2D, which we're going to talk about next, and that is much easier to place into your walls. So again, I added a divider wall just to show you that. Two other settings here before we go into 2D. We have cupolas first, and when you add a cupola, again, you can pick your style, you can select the size, and then just hover over the roof that it gets applied onto. You can center them, you can set them front to back, you can offset them dimensions, and even put 2 or 3 at a time and space them evenly. In this case, we're just placing one. We hover over the structure and click. And just like that, it frames that up and adds the new cupola onto it. Now, as you add a cupola, we're currently not adding any extra framing. So again, that could be added as part of your setup to have framing come in, but it just adds the visual up here and brings the part number in with your cost. Now, the next setting is dormers. And before we do dormers, I can add a dormer to the structure. It does have a very shallow pitch, so we kind of have to get into some more settings here. Maybe adjust this pitch up to an 812 so that we can easily add a dormer to it. So I'm updating my pitch just so that we can add this dormer, and then we'll revisit these settings through the main building here. As we're doing that, it's reframing, it's updating our price, and now we have a steeper pitch, which makes it nice so we can put a dormer on here. So we click the dormer menu, and since we went through porches already, the dormer opens up and it's very similar. What is the start point of the dormer? And again, we're hovering over a roof, so we're starting left to right. The start point, we can put in the width of the dormer, maybe it's 6 feet, and then the offset is how far is it set back up off the roof. We're going to set this to 1 foot, and what is the height of the face of the dormer? Maybe it's only 3 feet. These are all optional. We can set our pitch, we can set our overhangs of the dormer, how is it framed, rafters or trusses, and again, there's some more advanced settings in here of that dormer. We'll leave that for now, and we're going to go ahead and place a dormer here on the roof. So as we place this dormer, keep in mind it's just adding the dormer and the framing. It's not adjusting trusses on the bottom side automatically. So you may have to add some more load-bearing support if you're using this to do a quote. So we've added our dormer, and again, we could go ahead and place windows in that area if we wanted on that face there. So just like that, we've went through our 3D menu, the buttons at the top, and next we're ready for 2D. So jumping into 2D, this is just a 2D layout plan that allows you to edit your doors and windows in the 2D mode. So as soon as I get into this mode, you can click on any door or window that you've already placed. You can click on the dimension, and you can move them automatically to move them over. Maybe I want to move it to 3 feet from the corner, or I can just manually click it and drag it. So you have a lot of control in 2D that you don't really have in 3D. So when it comes to adding doors and windows, since we've went through all that of how to place them, these are the exact same. You click add, you find your style door, your style window, and hover over the wall where you want to place it after you've selected the one that you want. So when you place a door, maybe you change your mind. You have an undo up here. You can undo it or redo it. Save yourself some time there. So doors, windows are all very much the same in terms of placing them in 2D and 3D. You can drag them, and you can even center them. So we have a little centering ribbon here. When you click it, it centers it from that point to the edge of the porch. Or this door here could be centered from the porch to the corner by clicking that. So you can center from inside or outside. Next, we'll move over into interior walls. And the most basic is we added this first interior wall here. So when you're hovering over an exterior wall, it wants to allow you to place a wall anywhere that you like. So as you're dragging, you can type in a dimension, 4 feet, enter, and it puts that wall at 4 feet. So there's a few hidden tools here too. As you're going through, you may notice it's not obvious that you can type in, but down here on the bottom right of your screen will be a dimension that you can type in. So next, instead of just adding an interior wall, maybe you want to edit a wall that's there and delete it. So you can click right on the wall and delete it. Or you want to add an entire room. So you just put in your room size, the height of the room. Is it ceiling height? Is it roof line, full height? So in the bottom is set to 0. So if I set this to a custom height, it allows me to just frame, maybe it's a bathroom, and it just frames it to whatever height I want to place that. So if I click here, it frames that bathroom. It excludes these two walls since I placed it in the corner. And again, it could be post frame, it could be stud frame, whatever you need to do on that. And then the next step would be, well, I've framed my walls, but I'd like to do a loft on top of that. So I click on the lofts button, I click add, and simply putting in the size of the loft and placing it does it. If you have your defaults all set, it's going to place that loft. So I've got my 2x10 joists, I've got some ceiling material, and I could even have some OSB subfloor. Maybe it doesn't need ceiling inside that room. So you just hover and place that loft. Now you've created a second level, and you can even add doors or windows on that level. So when you get to this active level, this is your active level, it's green. Well, I want to add a door to that level or a window to that level. Sure, I can just go to doors and windows. But what if I don't want to add a door to that level? Well, then I need to click here on my slab, and that takes me back down to the floor level, and then I can add my door or window there. So as soon as I find my door, I click on it and I just hover, and just like that, I place an interior wall. So when you're done in 2D, you just close this box, you return, you save your changes, and it takes you back. We're not closing the job yet. It's just taking you back to the home menu so you can finish out your quote. So we're back to the 3D view. And now next we're going to go through just the basics of our main building tab over here. So we haven't covered this yet. So again, these settings that I'm showing here, you may or may not have some of these hidden depending on your setup. If any of these settings, you set them once and you don't ever use them, they can be hidden during your setup. So again, your settings, you may not have this many, or you may have more that's shown here. But for the most part, I'm just showing you everything that we have so that you get a good feel for what's possible. So changing the building size, the length, and the ceiling height. So maybe you measure your buildings from the wall height, from the metal. So you could use top of wall material instead of ceiling height. The pitch, obviously, and the overhang. So if you want to do a different size overhang on just one wall, you can do that. So maybe on the left side, we want to do a different size. Now, you may be thinking, well, how do I know what the left side is? If you go into your landscape settings and you toggle your labels on, it does give you a label in the grass. So I toggle labels on, and it's going to show in text. It's going to show that here on the grass. Now, maybe you don't want that messing up your image and you want to have a nice clean image. You can hide those labels and turn them off. So this is my left side. If I would set my overhangs on the left side to be maybe a larger overhang for the doors, maybe it's 2 feet, I could apply that and it's just going to do that. Now you have that control on any structure, so you can do advanced overhangs on any structure. So the next thing, going through roof peak, this would just do a barn peak out on the edge. Product systems, this is really powerful. You can control the type of product that's applying, and it controls the panels and trims. So if this is set up properly, a single click can change all the panels, trims, fasteners on that area of the structure. So when I go into my walls, maybe I do vinyl siding or smart siding or metal board and batten. Simply changing this is going to change the metal and the trim in that area. So one settings can change maybe 10 settings in the back end automatically. We're just leaving that for now. Colors, self-explanatory there. When you set up Smartbuild, these could be your colors. So I'm showing a lot of colors here that may not be familiar with you. You can just click and set those to whatever you need those. Wainscot, we're talking about a wainscot height here at the bottom, and that may be a stone product, or it could be just standard metal, and you can also adjust the height on that. Upper sheeting, if you like to cut the metal at the gable, we now give you control to do that. So you can set that to whatever height you want, turn that on, and you can have up to 3 levels. You could have wainscot, you could have siding, and you could have upper sheeting all on one wall. Ceiling liner, if you check the ceiling box, it's going to add ceiling interior. Now, if you're doing a cathedral or a vaulted ceiling, you may want to frame a flat ceiling. That's what flat ceiling does. Wall liner, checking the liner panel, adds the interior liner, and it also adds the framing. So if you don't need the framing, again, that can be done in your setup where you can hide and turn off extra interior girt framing for the liner panel. So again, we did a really brief walkthrough of the basics of getting a job designed. Now, getting back to the sales side of it, if you're using Smartbuild to do bids, these next things are going to be really critical to how you use Smartbuild day to day. So the first thing is we mentioned hiding the price, double clicking here, and also double clicking to bring it back. So when we get into the job review, we have our breakdown of the entire project. So at any time you can go into the framing, and if you double click on the price, it's going to expose out the individual pricing for those items. So by double clicking back on the price, it hides those so the customer cannot see that. So For sheeting, trim, you have the same functionality. You can go into that and you can look at your trim. You can double click on that and you can see where it's being used. So if it's a piece of metal and you're not sure where it's being used, you can click on it and it tells you exactly where that's being used in the ceiling that it's part of. So our drawings will reference ceiling 4, label S1, and then you can track that down. So if we look at the summary page here, two things I want to cover is the job markup. So maybe you have this set to be your retail pricing, and if this would be a commercial project, maybe you want to mark it up some. So you can click on this grand total here, and when you click on it, it's going to bring up a markup window. So it's a hidden feature. So if you type in your markup and you click apply, just like that, you can adjust the entire project. So another reason that you may come into this window is adjusting the sales tax. So if yours has not been set up, you can type in your sales tax percentage. And by doing that, I double click right on that percentage, and then it allows me to type into that text field. So you can set your markup. And this is all about having a total price at the top. So if you're a builder using Smartbuild, maybe you want to set your tax, you want to set your markup from your supplier. But what about your labor and your freight? So we give you ways to set that up too. And if you look into the labor, there's nothing added yet. There's no freight. So again, there's ways that we can set that up. The most popular is with packages. So we're kind of jumping over the door and window tab here. We're going to get into packages next. And your labor may be something that if you just have a number and you know, okay, on this project, I know how I quote my labor. I just want to set this to $10,000. You check a box, enter an amount, and just like that, we've got our labor added to this job. Concrete, it could be a little easier. Maybe you put in an amount, or maybe you have Smartbuild calculated for you. If you put in a square foot price in the back end, check a box, it just quotes a square foot price throughout the project. So as we're going down through here, keep in mind this menu is completely customizable. So when we're adding labor, we're adding concrete, things that we may be adding to this job cost, it's very easy in a sales row after you have these set up to automate these to where you're simply checking a box, you're going down through, and everything that you need to put in this bid is getting calculated in this job. So when you're ready to calculate everything, you can refresh and it updates your price to total price. So again, we have our job done. We have everything calculated. How do we get a quote to the customer? So we've done all the basics. We went through and we have the design exactly the way the customer wants. So what are our next steps? So a few things we have that we want to talk about yet. We have everything calculated, but we may need to save the job at this point. Now, we recommend as you're going through the job, save periodically just to not lose any work that you have in case your browser would crash. So you can save the work just so that this job is loaded and anytime you can come back and pick it up where you left off. So we've saved the job. The next thing, we have a Make Quote button. So what does Make Quote do? Basically, all that does is locks this job to where it can never be edited again. So if we go ahead and make it a quote, it's going to ask us, are you sure you want to do this? We say yes. And it takes us back to the home menu. So now we can do several more things to this job. Maybe we've quoted it and the customer changes their mind right away. Or maybe a couple of days later they come back and they want to make some changes. Well, keep in mind this job is locked, so we cannot make any changes to that job anymore. But we can still view it. If we go to our jobs list, there's a couple more things we can do there. And the first thing that you may be wanting to do is requote it. So if you click on these three little dots here, you can make a requote. Again, we're not ready to change this one, but if you need to requote it or make a copy, you can do that. You can also assign it to another salesperson on your team if they have access. So that's what's found in there. So in this case, we've made it a quote. We just want to get some downloads. Maybe we want to get a quote page for the customer. Again, these quote pages, these outputs can be customized. I'm just showing you a popular flow where I download a quote page and I have something that I can hand to the customer. So I've got a cover page here, has a QR code on it. They can open it with their phone and share it with whoever they want. So I've downloaded my quote page. I've opened this output up just so you can see it. So we have a QR code, we have a 3D link, we've got pictures of the job, and we also have a standard output here that we call our sales proposal. This can be automated to look however you want it to look, but again, it just details the project so you don't have to type this out and put it all on paper for them. It just does all that for you. So again, that's the most popular flow, is just setting up a quote page so that you can go right into printing that out for them. So we have a quote page. We can do post layouts. Maybe you need a post layout for them to pull a permit. So we have all different types of drawings in here, and you can check those out there. So we went through that. We've talked about job statuses. Those are the basics of managing Smartbuild day to day. Now, you may get into more advanced settings, which we'll cover in other trainings, but one thing we want to jump back to is maybe this project that we've done here is very popular and you quote a lot of those. So you can go into details, and when you go into the details page, it doesn't make you open the job up just so you can see what it is. It just quickly opens it in a view, and there's also a make starting model button here. As soon as you click make starting model, it opens this project up in an editing mode. It looks like you're editing the job, but it says modify starting models. So if you do that by accident, anytime you come into here, this is actually going to create a new template on your home page for this, exactly like this job. So maybe we call this popular small garage, or just give it a name. So as soon as we do that and we come into here, make sure you click refresh. As soon as you click refresh, it loads these job images so you can see what it looks like, and then you can go ahead and click save. If you go ahead and click save, when we go back to our home menu, you're going to see this template right front and center so you can easily access it. So we're circling back here to the last two sections in our menus here. We have drawings. When you get to the drawings menu, it allows you to select any individual wall section or roof section and see how that wall is being assembled. You can see the framing, you can see the sheeting, and you can see the individual framing parts that you can click on this menu, and it highlights this. And this is a 3D drawing, so you can see exactly where that part is in the model. So that's really helpful, and you can click print at any time to get a screenshot of this area. So that's helpful maybe day to day, or if a customer has a question about how something goes together. The next part is advanced edit. Now this is one of the most popular support tickets that we get when it comes to advanced edit, and it just relates to moving posts. So everybody seems we have a lot of questions about moving posts when it comes to moving a door, placing a door, and knocking a post out or whatever. But looking at this front attached building here, let's say that the customer wants to pull a truck underneath here and doesn't want this column right here. We want to move that all the way through. So this advanced edit, when you understand how advanced edit works, it gives you a lot of power in Smartbuild. So when you go into advanced edit, keep in mind this is a 3D visual, so you can rotate this around. You can pick the wall that we're talking about here, and now we have control over just this wall. So any of our settings changes that we make are not going to affect the rest of the building. So when we go into our details, which is where we find these post settings. So we're in EXT11, which that number is going to change depending on your structure. We go into wall framing, and it asks us, okay, what is your eave post spacing? Well, it's just set to 8 feet. Well, this porch was 12 feet. So if we say, well, we just want to set that to be full width, we got a 12 here as an option. We can do that, we can update that, and it's going to space those posts out. Now, maybe in your case, it's going to be something a little bit more unique, more custom. We do have a custom option there. And if you jump down to the next setting, eave post placement, you can select custom, or maybe you want to center or front or back. There's a lot of settings in there, but doing custom gives you some options. And if you understand how custom works, you can use this feature on trusses, posts, rafters, a lot of parts in the software. You can type in a custom field. And in this case, it's asking, what are your bay lengths? So maybe we want to do a 4-foot space, and then we want to do 8 foot. Or maybe we want to do 4 foot all the way across that wall. You can just type in 4, and it's going to repeat 4 feet all the way across there. So again, if you want to see what that looks like, you can refresh. It's going to apply those settings across that wall. So when you understand how advanced edit works, you can control just one area of your project, and you can do a lot with that. So whether it's a post frame structure, maybe it needs one wall that's stud frame. Again, those are a little more advanced settings, but it all comes down to using advanced edit. So that is wrapping up our user guide. And again, there's a lot more we can cover. We just covered the basics very quickly just to help get you started using the software. And then if you do have any questions, the next thing I want to show you is how do you contact support? So when you're in the home menu, you can click the support button at any time, and it brings up our support widget. If you're in a structure designing a job and you have a question, we also have this support button available here. So as soon as you click this support button, it opens up our support widget, and we have a phone number there. You can access us. But just let's talk about using this support widget just for a second, because the more info you give us when you click support, the better we can serve you and the quicker we can get a response back to you. So when you click on the support button, it opens the widget. We're adding new content here all the time. So if you want to, maybe you have issues about posts, you can type in the word post, and it will bring up videos or things that reference posts. So again, search for the article that may be in there to help you, or you can just go back here and you can contact us directly. So when you go to contact us, you can choose a ticket type. So what kind of issue do you have? Is just an issue? Are you trying to do a complex design? You need help with it, or maybe you've got a great idea that you want to let us know about. Again, just select your ticket type and then type in. So your name is automatically pre-filled. You've got your email. Just give us a subject line and description, and that really helps us know what you're needing or what you need help with. And then also you can take a screenshot or upload images. So depending on the ticket type, if you need help with a project, it's going to ask you for a job name. And again, if you're in a job, we can't see your screen, so we need to know which job were you working on. So again, filling out the support ticket, sending that in, we try to get back to you as soon as we can, but that can really help your overall experience. So again, that's our user guide. Wrapping it up, I hope this helps everyone, and we'll see you next time.